Yeah, you know who it is, and for those of you that don't, I'm Cytonius, the opposite of the phonius, from Speak Geek Unlimited, and today I'll be discussing the history of black superheroes in film. Representation is everything. In a world where we've had black presidents, black movie stars, and where rap is one of the top-selling genres of music, it's easy to overlook the fact that in the realm of film, black people are highly underrepresented. The term black film usually exists in a narrow spectrum of hood films and lowbrow comedies. High concept genres like science fiction and superhero films rarely give us movies with a black lead or black creators. The stigma is that a black audience wouldn't pay money to see black people in these types of films, which is a lie. The other stigma is that a white audience wouldn't pay money to see black people in these types of films, which is also a lie. With the upcoming Marvel film Black Panther breaking the record for advanced ticket sales, I think we underestimate the power of the black audience. But why do we think like this? Why are we limited to slave films and Tyler Perry films? There's several answers to this question. The first is that black creators were not allowed to show the diversity of black American culture in film. Whether or not we want to admit it, Hollywood has had a long-standing history of racism and prejudice. Hollywood has always had a hand in controlling and manipulating the narrative of black people in film. In 1903, one of the first silent films was an adaptation of the book Uncle Tom's Cabin. This film would start the tradition of white actors painted in blackface. Films such as the 1915 Ku Klux propaganda film Birth of a Nation and the 1927 film The Jazz Singer would continue the tradition of blackface in film. During the early years of Hollywood, segregation kept black actors and creators from participating in making movies. The black audience was completely ignored. To counter this, several motion picture studios were created specifically for a black audience. The Lincoln Motion Picture Company was founded in 1916 by black actor Noble Johnson and his brother George Johnson. Based out of Omaha, Nebraska, the Lincoln Motion Picture Company lasted only 5 years and produced only 5 films, but was highly influential in changing the narrative of black people in American film. Producing films such as The Realization of the Negro's Ambition, A Man's Duty, The Law of Nature, Trooper of Company K, and By Right of Birth, the studio went under in 1923 due to a lack of interest from the mainstream audience. Another black director by the name of Oscar Micheaux also had a black-run film studio called the Micheaux Film Corporation, which produced over 40 films between 1918 and 1940. The studio also failed financially, supposedly due to the Depression and the transition from silent film to film with sound. Unfortunately, independent studios couldn't compete financially with newly formed sound technology being incorporated in the film. In spite of giving a voice to black directors and actors as well as a black audience, Hollywood still continued its misrepresentation and disenfranchisement of black creators in film. During the so-called golden age of Hollywood, films like Casablanca and Gone with the Wind still portrayed blacks as subservient racial stereotypes. This trend continued well into the 40s and 50s. It wouldn't be until a Bahamian black actor by the name of Sidney Poitier emerged during the height of the civil rights movement and became the standard for the dignified black male in Hollywood. Sidney Poitier was a well-dressed, proper, and majestic version of black masculinity. And while he wasn't the first dignified black man of Hollywood, he was definitely a breath of fresh air for an American audience that was newly segregated and headed towards a cultural revolution. During the 60s, Marvel Comics innovated the way superhero stories were told. Characters such as Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and the X-Men all represented a disenfranchised aesthetic that spoke to an outsider youth culture that would come to later be known as Generation X. Marvel's rise to prominence in the 60s would cause a resurgence in the popularity of superhero comics. This would also contribute to the creation of several black superhero characters around that time, including the Black Panther, Sam Wilson the Falcon, Black Lightning, and Luke Cage. The perception of superheroes as disposable entertainment kept major film studios from taking chances on superhero films. This would change in 1978 with the release of Superman the movie. Starring Christopher Reeve, this would be the first major box office blockbuster superhero film. That film treated Superman and his mythology with dignity and integrity. Christopher Reeve plays Superman as a hero with unwavering goodness who didn't have an ounce of cynicism in his personality. For years, Superman the movie was considered the gold standard for superhero films, and is thought to be the first superhero film of the modern age. What a lot of people don't realize is that, technically, the first modern age superhero film was the low-budget blaxploitation film called The Black Superman. The movie was filmed in 1975 and came out in 1977 to a limited US release. The film was about a black scientist who develops an elixir that he gives to the leader of a biker street gang. The elixir gives the bodyguard superpowers that he uses to protect the scientist and his family from a racist neighborhood. With an origin that's part Captain America and part Luke Cage, the film didn't break any new ground or build an interest for black superheroes in film. It would take a full 16 years until we got to see another black superhero on the big screen, and that superhero was Meteor Man. Written, directed, and starring Robert Townsend, Meteor Man was an original character and had nothing to do with Marvel or DC Comics. Marvel did give the character a short-lived comic series to time with the movie. Meteor Man came to theaters August 6, 1993, and was a box office bomb. The following year, Damon Wayans dropped the comedy Blank Man, which focused on a nerdy genius man-child named Daryl Walker who was obsessed with being a real-life superhero. Both of these films seemed to spoof the comic book movie aesthetic and didn't treat the material with any respect. On August 8, 1997, we got the feature film Spawn, starring Michael Jai White. It's safe to say that Spawn was the first comic book movie starring a black lead that was a box office success. Making $84 million on a budget of $47 million. While Spawn wasn't a game changer, it was the first superhero film starring a black lead based on a successful comic book character. Spawn was a big budget film in every way, but it lacked the personality, and the CGI and plot didn't really age well. On August 15th, 1997, we got another black superhero film, which was Steel, starring Shaquille O'Neal. Based on the DC Comics character that was created by Louise Simonson and Louis Bogdanove, Steel was the story of John Henry Irons, a weapons manufacturer whose weapons fell into the wrong hands. Produced on a budget of $16 million, Steel would go on to gross less than $2 million and was considered a box office failure. The first wave of black superhero films seemed to suffer because they lacked the essential ingredients that make films work. Miscast actors, style over substance, no style, bad scripts, and not treating the material with respect was all a reflection of the general consensus of what superheroes represented at the time. It wouldn't be until August 21st, 1998, that the game-changing film Blade made its way to theaters. Starring Wesley Snipes, who was also a producer on the film, Blade would not only be Marvel's first successful film based on one of their comic book characters, it would also be the first black-led superhero film trilogy and would introduce many of the visual aesthetics popularized by The Matrix a year later in 1999. Wesley Snipes would go on to play Blade in 2 more sequels. One that was really good and the other that was not. We could talk about how shitty Blade Trinity was in another video at another time. But in 2004, a French visual effects director by the name of Pitoff would go on to direct Halle Berry in the film Catwoman, based on the DC character of the same name. Being the first major superhero comic book film to feature a black actress as their lead character, the film would go on to be a box office bomb as well as a major blemish on Halle Berry's filmography. 2004 would also be the year that we got the last Blade film to star Wesley Snipes. Blade Trinity was the third and final entry in the successful horror martial arts comic book franchise. Issues between the studio and Wesley Snipes would cause the production to have many issues and affect the quality of the film. With the success to failure ratio of black superhero films that saw more failures with black comic book characters as leads, we would see a boom in superhero films but with black actors as supporting secondary characters, with little to no character development. 2008 would give what many people would like to call the great comic book movie renaissance. Films like The Dark Knight and Iron Man would set off a wave of superhero films that were not only critically acclaimed, but also box office powerhouses. As great as those films were, there was still a void of critically acclaimed black superhero films arriving around this time. On June 16, 2008, we would get the film Hancock starring Will Smith as a drunk homeless superhero of the same name. The film was designed as a parody of Superman, but a lot of the backstory and symbolism in the film reveals the character Hancock to be the half-man, half-bird Egyptian deity known as Heru, the sun god. Hancock would go on to make $624 million at the box office, but a weak plot and lack of originality kept the film from adding anything of substance to the legacy of black superheroes in film. And even though there were characters like Anthony Mackie as Captain America's sidekick and best friend Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, Idris Elba as Heimdall in the Thor movies, Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox in Christopher Nolan's Batman films, and Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle as James Rhodes, aka War Machine in the Iron Man films, black superheroes in the modern age of billion-dollar franchise comic book movie films would have yet to get their shine. Until February 16, 2018. Black Panther was the first Marvel Cinematic Universe film to feature a predominantly black cast. It's also the first American-produced film to feature an international black cast with black actors from all over the world, including American-born actors like Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan, Angela Bassett, and Forrest Whitaker in starring roles, but also Kenyan-born actress Lupita Nyong'o, Trinidadian actor Winston Duke, English actor Daniel Kaluuya, and Guyanese-born actress Letitia Wright, all in major roles. By the time I released this video, I would have seen Black Panther twice already. And without going into any spoilers, I'll just say that, yeah, it's a dope-ass film. It's not perfect, but what does a perfect film even look like? You see, ever since the film was announced and the trailers were dropped, the film has had its critics. On both sides, with some people criticizing the blackness of the film. By the way, fuck y'all. And other people claiming that the film isn't the solution to racial prejudice. And my response to that is, it's not supposed to be. The importance of Black Panther isn't just about how much money the film will make, or the box office records it's breaking, or whether or not it can extinguish the ever-burning flame of white supremacy. It's about expanding the narrative of black people in film, as well as opening the door for black creativity. For too long, we've existed in entertainment in this black singularity of Negrohood turbulence and lowbrow comedies. I can't predict the future of black superheroes in film. I can only speak on what I hope is the next stage for black artists and creators. My hope is that Black Panther creates an environment where black entertainment can expand and flourish and control our own narrative, where we can have films that take us beyond the hood and beyond the struggle, where we have black film studios and where we have a culture where it's okay for black boys and black girls to be superheroes because they have heroes that look like them. I know some people may think that one film can't change things, but that's just it. Black Panther isn't one film. It's a part of a long history. It's another step in the right direction that proves that with the right timing and the right people involved, we can make the right things happen. I mean, if we can go from blackface to Black Panther, anything is possible. So where do you think the future of black superheroes in film is headed? Drop us a comment and share your thoughts. Once again, I'm Cytonius, still the opposite of Euphonious, and this is still Speak Geek Unlimited. And I actually want to thank all the people that's been rocking with the channel. Me and Darius appreciate y'all, and we hope that y'all stick around for more videos dropping every week. Also, remember to share, like, and subscribe to Speak Geek Unlimited, and to like us on Facebook and Instagram. With that being said, I'm out, man. Peace.